You're welcome to the Policy Council. In this segment, I have Bismarck Rewane with me. He's, of course, a reputable economist, financial analyst, managing director of financial derivatives. Bismarck and I will be exploring the environment of policy, global, Nigerian, and trying to profile solutions. So let's start with the global environment, Bismarck. In 2012, what factors from the outside world do you think should concern us in Nigeria?
The way I try to describe it is, what are the variables that will define Nigeria's economic destiny externally? The first item, obviously, is the global oil markets. The global oil markets, as we see them today, are in imbalance. Why? Because of what's happening in Iran and the fallout of what happened in Libya. So that's an issue. After the global oil markets, the general level of commodity prices will be the second variable. The third variable will be the number of elections. 54% of the world is going to have elections this year. All the way from Russia, which you have seen, down to the United States in November, China. So the elections, the fallout of the Arab Spring, that is the changes that are taking place as a result of people who are actually resisting the status quo and who want change at all levels. That is one.
Let's take global oil prices.
Yes.
Yes, we've seen an upward direction because of Iran and all of that.
Yes.
Do you think that upward rise is sustainable?
Well, let me put it in perspective. One is the fact that we are at about $127 a barrel Brent, which are on Bonny, and 106 Western Texas Intermediate. The difference between the two is actually about $21, which is very wide. Two is that the fact that Iran controls 5% of world oil reserves and about 8% of world oil production. Not only that, the Strait of Hormuz also opens up the transportation of Iraqi oil. So altogether, we have about 15% of the world's oil in either jeopardy or in play. Now, if there was a problem today, when we had a Libyan problem, 1.6 million barrels of the 42 million barrels in the world OPEC supply was removed. Now we'll be having about twice that amount, which is about 3.1 or 3.2 million barrels. That means that oil price could go as high as $134 a barrel. Don't forget, the current price is the highest point we've had since 2008. And before 2008, we got to $148 a barrel, and it stayed for 3 months. My guess is that what's going to happen to Iran is a lot of rhetoric. I don't think there'll be any attack, because I don't think we can afford an attack in Iran. The consequences are too dire for us to even contemplate. So apart from the theoretical abstractions, the reality is that the oil price is not going to stay at 126. I would say that the average oil price as the year goes on, maybe around May, June, will come down to about 110, probably down to $100.
So the Nigerian budget is not in danger in any way?
No, the Nigerian benchmark price is not actually the budget. The budget is actually how much actually comes in. The reality is that the difference between what you estimate to spend and what you spend are two different things. I think that the break-even price at which Nigeria's fiscal revenues are equal to its fiscal costs is maybe somewhere at about $80 a barrel at this point. And it begins to, and if you add other leakages to the system, it could be as high as 105, 110. Once the price of oil gets to $100, we begin to think of making adjustments. Some of the adjustments are official, some of them are unofficial. The unofficial adjustments are always the last. That is, the last thing to be sacrificed is the graft in the system. The first thing to be sacrificed are the people's comfort.
We have this double-edged sword in which when oil prices go up, we're happy on the revenue side, but then we have a subsidy that continues to expand. How do you see that interplay playing out, especially in the light of our recent experience with the subsidies?
Well, the reality is that as an oil-producing country, the subsidy shouldn't be the real issue. In fact, the subsidy shouldn't be there in the first place. So, that's an argument for another day. But the reality is that the upside from the revenue should far outweigh whatever cost. Because what do we import? Maybe 300,000 barrels a day. What do we export? About 1.6 million barrels. Net, we're in the money. But everything boils down to how efficiently you can manage that process.
You're welcome back, and I still have Bismarck with me. Bismarck, let's go domestic now. Yeah. What are your thoughts about economic indicators and sectors in 2012?
Well, the real issue is that when we assume that, say, the oil price rose in an average of, say, $110 a barrel. Now we are producing 2.2, 2.3. It means the budget is not threatened. Now, what happens? The first thing you have to decide is how you're going to share the revenue. I do not think there'll be any change in the revenue allocation formula. Therefore, the federal government gets 45%, the states gets 35%, and local governments get their balance. Having said that, there are two major issues of policy. One is fiscal. How do we spend the money, and how efficiently are we going to spend it? And secondly, how do we maintain monetary policy stability as far as the central bank is concerned in terms of interest rates, exchange rate, and the reserves? Now, let's take fiscal policy very quickly. Expenditure is going to be up marginally. Revenues are going to be up because we've had this windfall. And state government revenues are also going to be on the increase. The other hand is that expenditure is going to increase. Why? Because there is greater awareness and people are expecting more. After the Occupy Nigeria movement of January, people's expectations are relatively high. So the budget has been revised upwards. Fiscal expenditure and all that is going to be high. There's also the trade policy in terms of the levies and things which will kick in, and also the tax and tariff policy, tariff for electricity, and then the levy for rice, for maize, for rice, for wheat, and brown rice.
So we're going to have an inflationary year?
Well, not really. The costs are going to go up, but can you transfer this cost to people when their discretionary income has come down is another issue. So manufacturers are not being able to pass on cost increases in terms of prices fully. That's on the fiscal side. Monetary policy, we've had an increase in price inflation. First cut was 12.6%. We think that next month we'll have another 1% or 1.5%, maybe 13.5%. With some luck, maybe bad luck 14, good luck 13.5. We close out there.
You're welcome to the Policy Council.
Probably not increase interest rates initially because the exchange rate has moved more towards equilibrium. The external reserves are actually growing. So I am not too worried about monetary stability in the short run. But if fiscal policy is very loose, then the central bank will have to now respond, not only in reaction, but also in anticipation, because there are other issues that will come. The AMCOM bonds are going to mature in another 12 to 18 months. And so you have to get ready to absorb all that liquidity into the system. Having said that, so what do you face? Sectors are going to be confronted with three major challenges. One, a reduction in discretionary income because people are now paying 50% more for petrol. They're poorer. They're paying for tolls on the Lekki Expressway in Lagos. They're also paying for more electricity, and also the exchange
paying
rate, taxes, and also the exchange rate has actually depreciated from 149 to 156. So in all, the total withdrawals from the system are probably about almost $12 to $15 billion on a $247 billion economy. Having said that, now, which of these goods are those that are inelastic enough for you to pass on price increases, or which are those that are elastic enough that you have to absorb them? Those are the key issues. So let's take the sectors one after the other. The fast-moving consumer goods, definitely these guys have been hit by lower discretionary income. What do they have to do? They have to increase volume. If they increase volume, they increase their average revenues.
There's no capacity for increased volume anyway.
Well, but it is true. What you do is that you price yourself aggressively. The marginal players will not be able to actually compete. So what you're going to see is that consolidation will take place in that industry. You're going to see Unilever, Nigerian Breweries, Guinness, Nestle, and others.
Let's talk about agriculture quickly before we close this. There's a lot of policy talk around the agri sector now. How do you see some of the ideas that Dr. Adesina is articulating?
I like his ideas. The thing about agriculture is structural. It takes time.
Exactly.
It takes a long time before you see the results and before people believe the results are sustainable. You can have a good harvest, and that's only 1 year. So they need to be encouraged. The policies have to be supported. And he's saying the right things.
How about the financial sector? The growth rate of the sector is declining. The sector is shrinking from the GDP figures I saw.
Yes. There's a time lag between policy and effect. Now, the policies have come in. We've seen the expansionary policy of 2004, when we increased our capital, when Soludo was there, led to growth in the sector. Now, the policy variables that came in 2009 in terms of sanitization also led to shrinking.
Risk management, corporate
right, and now the people are moving. Sanitization led to stabilization. Stabilization now led to some further consolidation and then growth. We are in that stage of further consolidation and growth. I'm not concerned. I think that the financial sector is going to grow. Why do I say that? Because the cashless economy actually reduces the time for payment and settlement, makes it more efficient. The International Financial Reporting Standard makes sure that ensures
what you
that the
see
numbers,
is what you get.
What you see is what you get. And then global best practice, because Nigerian banks are also represented across jurisdictions. Therefore, I think the financial sector is in for surprising growth rather than further consolidation.
I think I'd like to have you back one day to talk in more detail about the financial sector, but thank you very much, Bismarck, for coming. It's been my pleasure having you.